Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at CaregiverDave.com, along with my lovely co-host, best-selling author and former mayor of Grover Beach in Central California, Debbie Peterson. Also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks, on 30 global audio and video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, CastBox, Mixcloud, and just a whole bunch more. In fact, we're proud to be voted #1 caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of thousands and #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Need inspiration? Charlie Siegel shares soulful poetry to help you heal, hope, and shine again. He's a best-selling author known for his spiritual poetry, fiction, fantasy, and biographical writing. His work is crafted to offer hope and inspiration to, in his words, help flowers bloom in the saddest parts of you. Aww. His latest and fourth book, Awakening the Inner Light to Walk the Path of the Soul, features over 150 uplifting poems and short stories, each paired with one of his fine art photographs of nature, wildlife, or sacred sites from the USA, Iceland, and Japan. You can explore and shop his portfolio at photobsc.com. Photobee, is that a word?
Photo by Nature Photo by SC.
What do I know? Charlie is also the eldest grandson and co-author of New York Times bestselling author and founder of Exceptional Cancer Patients, Dr. Bernie Siegel. Before we get started, I want to take this moment to thank my last week's guest, Rick Henkin, Caregiver Mastery, eliminating stress, anger, and guilt for family caregivers. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our membership website, CaregiverDave.com, or any of our other 30 global audio and video platforms that I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Charlie, so great to have you on the Caregiver Dave Show.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you both.
Always like to ask my guests just who is Charlie Siegel and why was he placed on this earth?
I think I'm here to help. I'm glad to help. I love to write inspiring works, poetry, short stories. I'm working on much longer pieces of fiction with a spiritual feel to it also.
Wow.
And then my photography, helping us all connect with nature more. So just uplifting as much as I can.
You look so young. How old could you be?
31.
31. Well, that's old enough.
Forever. Yeah.
Old enough. And you have a very close relationship with your grandfather, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's nice. We did a book together a few years ago. It's got our poetry alternating through it. And then this one that just came out has got everything I've written for the last 10 years or so. And he did the foreword for this one.
Is he a poet as well?
Yeah, kind of like for fun in his case.
Wow.
He said that his pieces he wrote really like decades before my time, and mostly in journals and stuff. And then he had previously published some of them himself. But we were emailing back and forth some years ago, and he was showing me some of his pieces, and I was showing him some of mine, and so many of them synced up that I was like, well, we'll line them up in a book.
He's a great guy. Make sure you tell him hello for me.
I will, thanks.
So I just want to warn you that I will be asking you to share some of your favorite poems, or at least one of your favorite poems. We don't have a lot of time here. But Debbie, why don't you start with some questions for Charlie?
Yeah, I am just so curious. How did you and your grandfather come to be poets? What do you have day jobs, or is this your life?
So for me, my mom owns a shop called Wisdom of the Ages in Simsbury, Connecticut. She started that when I was 3, which we do meditation classes and crystals and helpful spiritual things to help everybody take a breath. But I've really grown up in the shop, like doing my schoolwork in the back of it and being around all the time. So listening to that mindset of like, let's help people find peace, take care of themselves, find a spiritual path in modern life, really impacted me a lot. And I put that coincided with my grandfather's many books and being at his lectures as a kid and everything. I've sort of put all that together and like, well, I love to write. Let's put that helping people in a spiritual way into books.
Wow. So why did you write your newest and fourth book? And besides that, what were the first three about?
So my first one came out in 2017. It's a very short fiction, Conversations with an Angel, and it's all about helping people going through grief. That was something that growing up here in the shop, and a lot of times when people look more towards a spiritual path, look for something to help themselves, that's what I would hear is my mom helping people through a time of grief. And as I started to be like, well, I really want to write books to help people, I was like, that's the topic that hits home. I've been through it. People need help with it. Let's work on that.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Have you been through rough grief times yourself?
I know with my grandmother when I was about 9 or so, was a big time. And then just listening to how my mom has been able to help people through so many things, put all that together. She grew up in a very spiritual household too, with my grandparents teaching spiritual classes and meditation. And then, I got it on my dad's side with my grandfather doing his guided meditations and everything. The second one was the book that I did with him, with our poetry together. My third book was my martial arts teacher's biography, which I never expected to write. He asked me if I wanted to, and it came out nicely. Here we are at the new one.
Are you a black belt?
Yeah, I've been actually training in the martial arts since I was 4 years old. And then now I lead classes in a very traditional Japanese style, travel around training with them.
Oh, you're like the Karate Kid.
A little bit. Yeah.
So how long are your poems generally?
So most of them fit on a page. I'd say the longest one is 3 pages. And then I've got some short stories mixed into the book also that are like probably eight pages, something like that.
Think about which one you want to think about which one you want to recite for us. It would take about 60 seconds or so, a little later in the show.
Sure,
Debbie,
I marked a couple.
Good. Debbie, you have another question?
I'm looking at this kind of karate that you do, and I can see a few syllables jujitsu, which are familiar, but the rest of it, I've never heard of anything like it. Can you tell us how it differs from our usual understanding of karate?
Sure. So it's the art is called Daitaryu Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. Most people would see it in the easiest way as it's the ancestor art of Aikido, where you see Aikido around, more popular today. The founder of Aikido studied Daitaryu for 20 years, something like that, and broke away and took a lot of the principles and techniques and changed them a little bit to found Aikido. But the art that I practice then is preserved back about 1,200 years through the age of the samurai. We do the same techniques they did back through then. And it's really got more of like a spiritual feel to it, which is part of why I enjoy it.
So your fourth book, what do you want your readers to get out of it, and why did you do it?
So I was glad to have you bring me on the show here today, because I really feel like it's something that can help caregivers, especially people that are feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, used up kind of thing. I connect with nature a lot, and that's why I put each poem has a themed photo with it. But the basis of the idea is like, let's find that inner light within, the strength to continue the power in our hearts. And every poem goes at it a different way, but you can continue to find that message. Most people have been doing it as like, let me skim through and open and see what you get that day and take a message from that in the morning. And it'll last you a while that way.
What other artistic things do you do besides paint? You paint, right?
No, just photography and writing.
And writing.
Yeah, and my biography of my martial arts teacher actually opens with a funny quote that he did, that he considers it like a form of art, but instead of like paint and canvas, it's tatami and people. So that's how I look at it too. But with the writing, it just kind of continues to come to me. I'll get little sparks of inspiration for a short piece, or I'll kind of just have a character pop in my head, and I'm working on a much larger book now that is really working on like deep spiritual themes, but entertaining at the same time.
Well, why don't you read one of your shorter stories or poems, and if it has a photograph, maybe you can hold it up so our
Yeah,
radio people can see it.
yeah, sure.
What's that behind you, by the way? It looks like a bird.
Yeah, it's a little painting of an eagle. Says, "I'm not a human going on a spiritual experience. I'm a spirit going on a human experience." I always like that quote. So the cover of the book is a shot I took in Japan in 2024, and I thought fit with the title as you're walking the path. We have the lanterns glowing. I want to help people
That
find
is
that
a
light.
thick book, young man.
Yeah,
How many pages?
It's let's see, over 500.
Wow.
That's 10 years worth of my poetry, which a lot of times I wrote just as inspiration would spark me, like in line at Starbucks or riding in a car on a trip. And I collected them all, and I put out some, but I was like, okay, it's time to get everything
You can turn
together
that
in
into
one
10.
volume.
You could turn that into 10 books too, you know.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to read from one in the first chapter, which looks more at like emotions and things within yourself.
Mhm.
It's called Calling for a World Unseen. They asked me if I was up or down, and I said I forgot to ask. They asked me where I was, and I said I wasn't there yet. Everything is a culmination of all things. To get where you're going, you have to be where you are. To touch the sky, you have to realize it's already in the palm of your hand when you feel the air. Your dreams are not some faraway, scary place. They're nestled in your heart, curled up like a cat after a warm winter's nap. My hands are no different from your hands, made up of the same stuff that powers the solar system and turns our thoughts into reality. But what are thoughts actually? Physical manifestations of the unseen. But at what point do the thoughts pass through the gate from seen to unseen, from unseen to seen? And at what point do they choose to manipulate the scene we are in? Well, that's for you to decide. Create the reality you wish to reside in and realize that you are already there now. It just has to emerge from the thought realm into the plane where your body exists. Let it flow. I hear it now, pulling at the edge of the curtain that rests on the door to the universe.
Hmm.
And that one has a photo I took in Iceland of a really spectacular night of the Northern Lights over a lake there.
So you've been all over the world, yes?
Yeah, Iceland and Japan so far outside of the U.S. And Japan was for martial arts training, but became for photography also.
Wow, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy and laugh at the same time. You're very talented.
Thanks.
So what have you written, like thousands of poems, I'm thinking?
It's a lot. This was all of the ones that I felt were like, publishable and good quality from the last 10 years or so. But I'm a good ways into my next book now, and many more things on the way.
So it's like writing music, writing a song. Some are hits and some are, well, maybe we'll see.
Yep.
I'll keep working on that one.
I have one in there that is like about stirring coffee, but it's looking at kind of like a Zen type of feel on like, are you the coffee? Are you the spoon? Are you the steam? I wrote that in line getting coffee. They just kind of come to me.
You got to read these slow and meditate on them and chew them like a cow chews its cud.
Yeah, I've loved to hear that from people, their feedback that they've been just randomly opening it in the morning, and it's one lady was like, "How is your book like in my head? Like it's talking about things from that day." Wow. I'm glad it's helping.
That was a blessing just hearing what you read. Debbie, you got any other questions?
I'm really curious. You went to Japan to train in karate and such, and it looks like you probably learned some spiritual lessons there too. What do you feel the Japanese culture could offer you on that?
Yeah, I felt more and more connected with the Buddhist temples and practices as I was there. I have a little ring on with a tiny Buddha there. Good reminder. But I've gotten to go 3 times with my teacher. He runs events out there usually once a year. But I've tended to stay after the group and really get more into the feel of the place. And the cover of the book is from Koyasan, which is an almost 1,200-year-old World Heritage Site temple. That one in particular has that feeling of, like my mom's store's name, the wisdom of the ages. But the idea of like constant they say polishing the stone, like you're never done working on yourself, working on what you want to be. I feel like that the term they use there is shugyo, which is like austere training, but like continual want to benefit yourself with the idea that you're never actually done. You're just keep wanting to get better. That's connected with me a lot.
Wow. So who's the publisher of your book?
So the newest one I actually self-published. I worked through Amazon, so it's up on there. Or if people reach out to me, I can do autograph copies with you. But I wanted to leave it where I could really control it with that many photos in it and everything that way. Just to create just how I wanted it.
Well, out of those 500 pages, how many pages are photos?
So there's one for each poem, and then there's 160 something poems. So yeah, I think it's 163.
So, huh?
Like 163 is photos. The rest is all poetry and
color, and black and white.
Actually, I did it in different options, which is part of why I wanted to publish it myself too. I'm holding the color paperback, but I have a higher quality color hardcover, and then a black and white paperback and an ebook. So you got 4 options.
Well, this is very interesting because you talk about caregivers. You know, we're trying to keep them alive because a lot of them die before their loved ones do, but 30 to 40%, depending on whether they're a dementia caregiver or a non-dementia caregiver. And many that don't die, they just eventually become sicker and need a caregiver of their own. Kind of a negative thing, but how can you help caregivers? You know, they don't ask for help. They don't put their needs first, and a whole bunch of other things. They don't have boundaries. Sometimes they allow themselves to be abused by the one that they're caring for. Well, what have you got for them to help them out?
Yeah, that's part of why I like the idea of books. Is like myself sitting here, I can only do so much, but if I can put something helpful for them in a book and just get it on your shelf where you can touch it every day and leave it with you, where it's going to be like a lasting impression. Hopefully, like after I'm gone, that the books will still be there helping.
It's called legacy, yes.
Yeah. I do have another piece if we have time, if you want, that I thought would be a nice one for Caregiver also.
Thank you.
Autumn is my favorite time of year, and so there's, if you looked across the book at like poems that discuss seasons at all, you'd see the most is autumn. I'll show you the photo first. Actually, this is out in Oregon. It's a little dark to see, but it's a winding staircase going up through the autumn woods. But this one talks about like a little conversation with the autumn trees, and okay. Like the hands of a dear friend reaching out to take my own and embrace, the tree's autumn foliage descends and twirls its way across my path. They speak of a time of change, wishing for my embrace in return as they proceed down their path of life. When the changing times come, take heart, child, they whisper in my mind as I walk. For all the trees call me child. I'm but a child in the realms they walk.
It's true.
My feet carry me forward, and I'm told of the days when the earth was nothing but change. Long before the trees ever took root, the land was in upheaval, in the days of vibrant volcanoes and rupturing seas. But we one day saw another world to come of this, the world in which we now live. What are you changing into, child? The trees ask, continuing to paint my path with leaves like the footprints of my ancestors for me to follow as I grow. What worlds will you form within your own consciousness? Do the explosions of the volcanoes and turning, twisting, changing times of the world ever cease? Weep for when they do, for then your changes cease to grow. Finding a tree who looks like me, staring out over the great beyond, its roots perch precipitously on the edge, I take a seat and take heart. The changing times are the strongest, I realize. These times of change, when all seems to be falling apart, is really when it's all coming together. The tree nods in appreciation as the wind blows to bow its branches. These days of change between the seasons, between the ages of a person's life, are meant to be lifted up on high, exalted, and celebrated. The fires are lit on the nights between the seasons, when everything seems out of balance on the solstice or in balance on the equinox. What solstice or equinox are you facing in your life? Take heart as the trees do and see you're not alone. Earth is a place of a great many changes. You're part of the plan, child. And that one's called It's Only Changes, Child.
I love that metaphor. because the
Thanks.
trees are old and we are but
Yeah.
children. Even my wife
Yeah.
likes it. I hear her saying some positive sounds in there. You like that,
Thanks.
honey, huh? She likes it.
Nice. I appreciate it.
Mikey likes it.
Yeah.
Debbie, you got anything else?
Yeah, it seems like so many of those lines, one or two of them together would be great topics in and of themselves for a meditation. I
Yeah.
think
I
I
love to
think
find that sort of come out in it.
you've got it there. And I wanted to ask a little more about your experience in Iceland. You showed us some northern lights. What's
Right.
the story on Iceland?
Yeah. So back actually almost 10 years ago now, instead of like college for photography, I took 2 trips to Iceland where I got to study with people that would cover like the really detailed manual aspects of the camera, like how to photograph the northern lights and stars and all those kind of detail qualities. Um, but I wanted to go out and like, okay, take me to a place where I can take some photos and show me how to do it. I'm more of a like in the action kind of person. So I especially wanted to photograph Iceland because there's so much like raw, pure, untouched nature. And that like growing up, my mom's side of the family has a lot of native friends and they teach a lot about like the oneness of nature and people and kind of the teamwork with nature. So through my photography, it's the idea like when people feel kind of isolated, alone, especially how, like you mentioned, some people in a caregiver situation can feel. Just like getting out in nature, even having like a photograph of a pretty nature scene on your wall is that mindset shift. So I was like, okay, Iceland has it. Let me go like catch some of that and bring it back for everybody. And my grandfather talks about studies they've done with people in hospitals with nature photos on the wall versus
Mm.
nothing versus just kind of whatever. And the nature really had an impact on people's health and healing. That's a big focus of that side of my work.
That's intriguing to me because I write a blog for Psychology Today and several things, but happiness is one of them. And they've done studies with people looking at pictures of nature and nature, and they both have the same positive impact, whether you're looking at the photo or whether you're actually out there looking at the
That's
nature.
cool.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
And with my photography, it's that naturephotoby.sc.com. You'll obviously see that it's me, like when you see it in books and everything. But when it's like just a photo, I decided to not put like, oh, Charlie Siegel did this on it. I ended up just putting SC, which was like a whole thing when I was a kid with the initials. But doing that because like I want my photography to be like a window to nature, not like I didn't create anything that I photograph is really the point. Like I'm just going to stand over here and show you this pretty thing like in the best way that I can. And I enjoy the artistic element of that, but that they're all real, really. Like I'm not faking anything in photos so I'm not really making anything in them either.
So you've grown up in a spiritual way of life. Explain your spirituality and what fuels your passion and who God is in your life.
So I feel really connected with all that's around us, like in terms of nature and the earth and that oneness kind of energy. Part of the idea with the title of the book, actually, Awakening the Inner Light, is the idea which I've got a little part in the introduction that quotes like some native teachings, Shingon Buddhist, which is the type that this temple on the cover was from, a few other schools of thought that look at the idea that like we have a lasting soul within us that goes on beyond this life. But to think of it like, okay, where did that come from? What is it? There's a whole other Rumi quote, which is one of my favorites, that looks at the idea like if God was holding a mirror, it fell and broke in pieces. Everybody picked up a piece and was like, well, I got it. We only got a little piece. To me, that talks about your soul, that you're like a little broken off piece of light of the universe. But the idea is, awakening that light and realizing like, hey, I'm not broken off. If I'm a piece of the whole, I'm connected to something so much bigger and greater than me, like God, the
Part of the
positive energies
puzzle,
of the
huh?
universe. Yeah, remembering that connectedness. I think in modern situations, many people are feeling sort of shut off or distant, disconnected. Whether you have like a religious mind, a spiritual mind, just nature connected, whatever you got. I feel like knowing that you're a piece of something greater is really healing for people.
And you talk about meditation and awareness. I'm sorry, Deb. Explain what your definition of meditation and awareness and oneness all means to you.
So yeah, there's a lot of different types out there. My mom and I lead guided imagery meditation classes in Wisdom of the Ages every month, where it's walking people through like peaceful imagery with music. There's a little like release of stress and bringing in positive, like an energy shift in it. So that's a type which I still enjoy. You can continue to advance that where it's more like going deeper and deeper within. I'll do some silent meditation sometimes, or like focusing on a point to find that stillness. And I often say when I write, I need like a place of silence in my head where the writing just kind of appears. Like all the stuff I read that I wrote, like I don't talk like that. I write like that, and I need like that sort of silence, and then it flows out. And meditating and being in nature feels like it recharges that silence for me.
It's a great show. I can't believe how fast our time's gone today. Debbie, do you have a closing thought?
I would like to know, can you tell us again where we can get your book? And do you have a website or somewhere that people can reach you?
Oh, sure. So if you go to Amazon and look up Charlie Siegel, same as my grandfather's last name, Siegel, you'll find all 4 of my books on there. You can probably look up Awakening the Inner Light, and I have that second part of the title, To Walk the Path of the Soul. I am on Facebook and Instagram, author Charlie Siegel. You can reach out and be like, hey, I want an autographed copy, or I want to talk about this. I like talking to people.
Does your mom still have the same shop? Can we go?
Yep,
Where will we find that?
So she has a website for the shop, wisdomoftheages.biz, B-I-Z. So you can go and check that out. And we do like virtual shopping with people, like on video chat, where you can shop the store and get things shipped if you aren't in Connecticut or Mass. And then on the photography side of my work is naturephotoby.sc.com, S like Sam, C like Charlie. So you can go through a whole bunch of my stuff on there, and it's like wall art and little gifts. Like my phone case is one of my photos from Japan, little Torii Gate entrance. You can get all kinds of things on there.
Well, Debbie, tell us what your niche is and how people can get a hold of you.
Write about local government and how people can be influential and help their communities by engaging. And the one behind me today is Local Impact. You can make a difference. And I have several others. They're all on Amazon. The stories of what I've done. So if you look for Debbie Peterson, Integrity 101 on Amazon, you'll find them.
Great. And remember, everyone, that all our shows become recorded pod and video casts on all your favorite platforms. My #1 best-selling book, It's Your Life Too, How to Survive and Thrive as a Caregiver, is available wherever books are sold, and also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com, where you can schedule a free 30-minute initial coaching call, talk about whatever you want to talk about or struggling with. You can also join our Facebook community of 34,000 caregivers on Caregiver Dave. And if you click the like or follow button, whatever platform you're on, it helps Google reach even more caregivers. So again, big thank you to all my listeners out there, and thank you guys. Debbie, thanks every week for coming in, and everyone for tuning in every Wednesday, and for making us the #1 caregiver podcast on the internet, everyone. So until next week, same time, same channel, may God richly bless you all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Dave Nassani, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first, before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver. Pick up your copy today or buy one for your special caregiver. On sale everywhere and at caregiverdave.com.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again.